Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be back at Liberty. Those of you who are new, I come on a fairly regular basis because everybody needs a psychologist every now and then, don't you? And so I'm here to help you a little bit. Most of you know my background. I used to work at a mental health clinic. I was a staff psychologist, and I left the mental health clinic because I couldn't tell the staff from the patients, except the staff had the keys. They seemed to have as many problems as the patients had. And so I decided to take a job change. I actually worked at a mental health clinic one week, and then I worked at a Baptist church the next week. People say, is that a big adjustment? I say, no, the staff still have the keys, but other than that, I can't tell a whole lot of difference. There's a lot of problems in churches sometimes. A lot of us have our difficulties. And so I decided actually to go on the road. I speak full time. I got tired of listening. How many of you ever get tired of listening? Just raise your hand every now and then. Well, how would you like to be a psychologist? That's all you do is listen and say, I can understand how you feel that way. I mean, that's what I did. And after a while, I just got tired. I thought, why am I listening and they're doing the talking? I mean, they're seeing a psychologist and I got a PhD. I should know more than they know. And so I decided I'm going to talk for a while. Sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? It wasn't a good idea. It didn't go over well at all. It goes something like this. The guy would say, the reason I'm a loser is because my dad was an alcoholic. I said, there's another way of looking at it. Maybe your dad's an alcoholic because you're a loser. I mean, there's another way of looking at it, right? Well, people aren't going to pay for that, you understand. They're not going to pay for that. And so I decided to go on the road, and now I talk for a living. I get to talk to businesses. I get to talk to churches. There's a golf tournament before most business conventions, and I like to play in the golf tournament. In fact, I did the Texas OBGYN convention, and I played golf with this OBGYN guy. And I promise you, he couldn't see. I mean, he couldn't see. I said, there's your golf ball right there. I said, you can't see. I said, are you still practicing? He said, I'm OBGYN. You just got to feel the little fellows. And so be careful when you go out there because doctors just practice. I'm not sure they all know what they're doing. But sometimes they will give me a guy that he's just awful. How many of you play golf? Anybody play golf here? Well, golf's a tough sport. It's kind of like baseball. You got a stick and a ball, but you got to play your foul balls. And so it just doesn't go well. I mean, if you hit it to the left, it's a hook. If you hit it to the right, it's a slice. If you hit it down the middle, it's a miracle. It's just a hard game. And so this guy's just mad. He's throwing his club down. He's getting mad. He's saying a few bad words. And the president of the company will turn to me and says, why don't you help this guy? He's got emotional problems. He's got anger issues. You're a shrink. Help this guy. And I'll say, hey, you know what would really help this guy? He'll say, what? I said, what will really help this guy is a golf lesson. That's what will help this guy. You see, he doesn't have emotional problems. He's got some of the best emotions I've ever seen. I mean, he's got great anger. I mean, he's got, he's probably depressed now after playing the way he played. You see, most of us, we think we have emotional problems, but let me be truthful with you. Most of us have living problems. Matter of fact, these people that tell me how they're living, I'd say, well, no wonder you're depressed. If I live like that, I'd be depressed too. You see, you're not going to change your emotions until you change the way you live. And I just want to tell you, probably it's just one thing that if you would change would make all the difference in the world of you being the person that God wants you to be. You see, I believe at Liberty, you're the best and the brightest. You're the Daniels of our world. And Daniel, how was he an influence in his world? He was 10 times better. He was 10 times better. You're going to be an influence in your world, not by grabbing people by the collar and say, sanctified or French fried, I hot as hell, turn or burn. That's not going to do it in this world. It's when your life grabs them by the heart and they say, I'd like to be like you. I'd like to have the emotions you have. I'd like to live the life you live. You see, that's what's going to change the world. But usually it's one thing that burns us over and over again, that keeps you from being the person that God wants you to be. See if you can visualize this with me. We're going to have a picnic. We're going to watch a ball game, and we're pretty excited. And we're going to grill some steaks and got some Diet Coke there and some chips. And the grill's just really hot. We're just about to put the steaks on, and a friend of ours comes in. Let's just call him Bill. And Bill waves to us. We wave to Bill. And Bill puts his hand on the grill and burns himself severely. And you, good night, just Bill, see what he did? You know? And they rush him, they take him out, they take him to the emergency room, and they put salve on him, and they kind of bandage him up, and they release him, and you check on him, and he's doing well. He got a good burn there, but you know, he's doing well. And it's about a month later, we're having another picnic, gonna grill some more steaks, and the grill's good and hot. We're just about to put the steaks on, and Bill walks in. And you can kind of feel the tension. I mean, a little bit. I mean, you know, he's by the grill. You know what happened last time. You know, should you say anything? Should you do anything? You know, just kind of a lot of stress building up there. And we wave at Bill just a little tentatively. Bill waves at us. And then, before we can even get over there, he puts his hand on the grill again and burns himself severely. Now, you and I just standing around talking. The conversation may go something like this. That Bill, he's a nice guy, isn't he? I mean, our kids play soccer with his kids. And you know, he seems pretty normal, doesn't he? And you know, but when it comes to grills, I mean, the guy's nuts, isn't he? I mean, he's just nuts. And that's what I've discovered about you. Most of you, pretty normal in just about every area of your life. But there's one area you're just nuts in, and it keeps burning you over and over again. It's like the old psychiatrist jokes. I know all the psychiatrist jokes. Guy goes to see the psychiatrist, remember this one? And he's got 2 burned ears. And the psychiatrist says, what happened? He said, well, I was ironing, the phone rang, I picked up the iron. He said, yeah, but both your ears are burned. He said, they call back. Now, that's what happens to your habits. Your habits call you back, and you end up burning yourself over and over again, and you wonder why your relationships aren't going the way they're supposed to. Your life isn't going the way you're supposed to. And so we need to understand that God has the plan, not just for your eternal life, but for this life. Now see, most of us here are Christ followers, and we trust God for that 6-foot hole. I mean, why? Because we don't have any choice. I mean, we know we can't handle the 6-foot hole. I mean, we don't have any great-great-grandmothers still alive. There's nothing we can do about the 6-foot hole. We better trust God with that one, right? But when it comes to life itself, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to our habits, when it comes to discipline, then we end up falling for the world Ponzi scheme. You see, the world's just a Ponzi scheme, always promising what it can't deliver, always saying you can have rewards without risk. You know, you can have pleasure without consequences. Whether we're talking about an exotic derivative or an exotic dancer, the world is always saying this is the way to be happy. And so we have to constantly renew our mind and realize that God has the best way to live. Peter, interesting thing happened in the Bible. Peter thought he knew about life. He fished for a living. That's how he made his money. He was a fisher guy. And so I guess he was pretty good because he made a living fishing. And one day, Peter fished. Well, he fished all night long. And he didn't catch anything. I mean, not a thing. He was tired. He's depressed. And that may be the way you are today. Man, life isn't working. You're not catching anything. And then Jesus showed up. And Jesus said, Peter, let me give you a little advice here. Why don't you throw the net over there instead of where you've been throwing it all night long? And you can imagine what Peter's thinking. Come on, Jesus, you know nothing about fishing. I mean, you're a spiritual guy. You're the preacher. Good night. I mean, preachers don't know anything about fishing. I mean, come on. Come on. I know fishing. There's no fish there. I've been fishing all night. There's none there. But then he probably turned to his guys, what do we do? Let's humor him. I mean, he is Jesus, you know. Let's humor him a little bit and put the net in. And he puts the net in. And he can't believe, they can't even bring it up. There's so much fish. And all of a sudden, Peter realized, not only does this guy know about death, this guy knows about life. You see, I've read the book. I know about life. Matter of fact, people come to me all the time and they say, well, you just can't predict life. Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Well, some of you like Forrest, don't you? Remember, Forrest IQ wasn't too high. Remember, Forrest said some good things. But let me tell you something. Life is not like a box of chocolates. You pretty much know what you're going to get. Matter of fact, you tell me what you're doing right now, I'll pretty much tell you what's going to happen in the future. You see, life's more like anybody remember, you're probably not old enough, anybody remember a Whitman sampler chocolate that you got in a box? Somebody as old as me? And remember, you're only as old as you remember, so don't worry about age. But Whitman samplers were boxes of chocolate. But on the top, they would tell you what's in the box. I mean, you could look if you want some like caramel with pecans, you could look third from the right. Hey, there it is, right there, get it. You want some fudge? Hey, fourth down from the left, there's the fudge. Now, they would put some aluminum around about 2 or 3 of them. It was a surprise. You didn't know what you're gonna get. And that's pretty much the way life is. There's some surprises, but most of the time, whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. You tell me what you're doing, I'll tell you what you're getting. So how do you find that path? We're not going to have time to finish because I've never actually finished a message since I've been here. But anyway, that's okay. We'll just do the best we can. P stands for purpose. You see, the world says you can be anything you want to be. I mean, it's America. You can be anything you want to be. You can't be anything you want to be. You can only be what God designed you to be. You see, some of you like to be playing on this court, but God made you slow and short. You're not going to play on this court. You understand? You're not playing here. See, God didn't design you that way. But see, we're always saying, oh, well, it doesn't matter what God designed. I can be anything I want to be. You see, God created you. Matter of fact, in Proverbs it says, train up a child in the way he should go. That means God created them. If you look at the Hebrew, it's like a snake on a rock. It's like a fish in the water. It's like a man with a maiden. There's certain ways God made you that he didn't make anybody else. And so you're to find your purpose, what you're supposed to be. You see, God made all creation that way. Even if you look at the creation like, well, take a cantaloupe. Cantaloupe seed goes in the ground. What's it going to be when it comes out? It's going to be a cantaloupe. Watermelon seed goes in the ground. What's it going to be? Watermelon. Now that cantaloupe can say this. This is America. I don't want to be a cantaloupe. I want to be a watermelon. I mean, I go to Liberty. I can be anything I want to be. I am going to be a watermelon. So that cantaloupe seed can get some of those Robert Schuller tapes and play it over and over again to that cantaloupe seed. Possibility watermelon, possibility watermelon. It can get some of those Zig Ziglar tapes. Positively watermelon, positively watermelon. Get some of those Rick Warren tapes. Purpose-driven watermelon, purpose-driven watermelon, purpose-driven watermelon. Get some of those Joel Osteen tapes. Highly anointed, favored, blessed watermelon. Highly anointed, favored, blessed watermelon. Get some of those Stephen Covey tapes. Learn the 7 highly effective habits of watermelons. 7 highly effective habits of watermelons. Get some of those subliminal, subterrestrial tapes. You know, like college students think to help them study when they sleep. Subliminal. And so get subliminal, subterrestrial. Play watermelon thoughts to that cantaloupe seed when it sleeps at night. Play watermelon thoughts, watermelon thoughts, watermelon thoughts. Go to some new age hotbed, channel up some 400-year-old guru. Let him sit bow-legged, naked, hum, hold a crystal, and hum watermelon thoughts. Hum watermelon thoughts. Can go to a Tony Robbins seminar to walk on fire to prove you're capable of being a watermelon. Go see a psychologist. Get in touch with your inner child. Maybe your inner child was a watermelon at one time. Now you can do all that, but when the cantaloupe seed comes out of the ground, what's it going to be? It's going to be a cantaloupe. It's going to be a sorry, no good, dysfunctional cantaloupe because all you've done to it. But it's going to be a cantaloupe. Why? Because that's what God created you to be. I don't know what you are. Some of you watermelons, some of you cantaloupe, some of you kumquats. You a little strange. That's okay. because you'll reach other kumquats. Guess what? That's how it's all planned. But the path is the path for you. If you look at the disciples, they were all diverse. God's into diversity. Find your purpose. And then A stands for allies. Life is a partnership. That's why the Bible says it's not good for man to be alone. Now, this is before sin came in the world. Some people say, all I need is God. Well, that's not what God said. See, even when Adam had a perfect spiritual relationship with God, God's the one. You can't be all I want you to be by yourself. So you need to be around other people. You need to be around other people. You see, God is the Trinity. If you ever go to church, you probably heard the Trinity. God is three personalities in one. But you actually can create your own personalities. We call that multiple personality disorder. We'll put you in a state hospital. You're not supposed to do it that way. God's plan is for you to be around other personalities to complete you. And by the way, you guys who are here, it's especially important for you to be around other people. Matter of fact, do you realize research says that single men go in the prison and the state hospital a lot more often than married guys? So you guys that are married, way to go. You guys that aren't, you better find yourself a woman. And why? Because it's going to keep you out of prison and the state hospital. That's why. You say, well, why is that? Because your wife will tell you when you're crazy. That's why. She'll say, don't do that anymore. They'll put you in a state hospital. And so it's one way just men stay out of the state hospital. But see, life's going to get tough sometimes, and you're going to need somebody else. I heard them talking about snowboarding. I used to go skiing a lot out in Colorado. We'd do a lot of ski Bible studies. And I didn't take to skiing very well. My wife just took to it right off the bat, which kind of ticked me off a little bit, you know, and I didn't do well. And by the way, if you've never been skiing, take lessons because you'll have the life expectancy of a fruit fly, you know, if you don't take lessons. Any sport that has an ambulance at the bottom of the hill, respect that sport, okay? So I took lessons, but it didn't go very well. I mean, it was like a contact sport for me. And so I was leading this group out there in the Bible study, and after one day, I decided to take a day off. Just sit in a hot tub, meditate, you know, think about God and that kind of stuff. And so my wife comes by and says, what are you doing? I said, I'm taking the day off. I'm sitting in the hot tub. She says, you're the leader. You're not supposed to be taking a day off. Let's remember Daniel, 10 times better. You know, I'm thinking, I hate it when they practice what I preach. And so, and I tell her, I'm sore. I'm sore. It's good for my body. She said, how can you be sore? You jog 2 miles every day. How can you be sore? I said, I very rarely fall down or run into trees when I jog, and I'm sore, okay? So finally she gives me that look, you know, that look that women have. And so she gives me that look like you're sorry, no good. And then some of my buddies come by and they say, Charles, let's go skiing. I said, man, I don't know. I fell a lot. I'm just not very good. Look, we'll take care of you. We'll go on those really small, easy slopes, you know, those green slopes, you know. And if you don't know anything about skiing, green is like sweet little slopes. Just, you know, they name them like Peter Rabbit Run and Peach Blossom Hill and, you know, stuff like that, you know. And so I'm pretty excited, you know, okay, gonna take care of me. No bad slopes at all. No bad slopes. And so we get out there and we're on the greens. I'm relaxed. And we make a turn, and we're on a black slope. And man, I look straight down, and black slopes, I mean, they don't even try to disguise it. I mean, they call it names like Paul Bear's Peak, and you're gonna die today. You know, just those kind of, you know, they should just put, you'll soon see Jesus after this slope. But I look down there, and I'm just petrified. And I mean, I start praying. I'm like you. I confess sins I just thought about doing. I mean, I'm thinking, good man, you know, I tell God I'll go to Pango. I'll be a missionary. You know, I'll do anything. Just get me down. And then all of a sudden, I hear a voice. Friend with me. He's an expert skier. He's over there to the right. He says, Charles, don't look down. Don't look down. Just look at me and make those little S's and come over to me. And that's what I did. I made my little list as I went over to him. He said, don't look down, don't look down. I'm gonna go back over here. He gets on this side of the mountain, and he said, now make your little S's, don't look down, come to me. And that's how we got down that mountain. You're gonna get some tough times in life, my friend. You're gonna need somebody else to help you down the mountains. You're gonna need some allies, you're gonna need some friends. It's all about other people. So PA, allies, if you're gonna get in the right path, T stands for take responsibility. Most of my life as a psychologist, I've spent with people who want to blame other people for their problems. At first, I was naive. I'd believe what they told me. This lady would tell me about her husband, what he did, what he said, how he acted, what he called her, locked her in the closet. What kind of guy is this? I'm thinking, what a gorilla. How did she marry this guy? What a jerk. Man. That's an awful guy, terrible guy. And then she says, you've got to see him in the morning. He's your 9 o'clock appointment. I don't want to see this guy. I'm not a really macho kind of guy. I'd much rather say, isn't he a coward than doesn't he look natural? You know what I mean? And so I'm a little nervous. I don't want to meet this guy, called her this, locked her in the closet. Man, I'm a little nervous. Walks in, smiles, shakes my hand, starts telling me about her, what she did, what she said, what he called her. No wonder he locked her in the closet. That's where that lady belonged. And so the fact of the matter is, if you give people the power, you'll pity yourself. But if you give God the power, you'll pity other people. Why? Because whatever they do to you, God can take and use for you. You see, if he can get good out of the cross, the worst thing that anybody could do to somebody, and make it the best thing for everybody, then he can get good out of whatever comes your way. Learn to take responsibility. Just think about this. This will help you. This will be very practical. You can put this into practice within 5 minutes, probably, just like Johnny told you. WAIT. Let that stand for this. Why am I talking? Why am I talking? You see, most of you, well, this school, this professor did this. Well, they did this. This is why I'm in a bad mood, because this happened. This is why I did it, because this happened. Just let it go. The more you talk about it, the worse it gets. You see, it brings up that all emotion, all that pain again, and then she continues in that vicious circle. And so why am I talking? Keep it quiet. See, that's the way most Christians deal with problems. We just want to talk about them all the time. Some of you are addicted to church. You come to church and you feel good and you worship and man, you got all that good feelings, and then you go out there and you act just as miserable as you did before you came in, and then that gets you depressed again. You get in a bad mood, and so you got to go back to church again. And those are the people who want to go to church all the time. Let's go to church all the time. Why? Because you don't know how to live. That's why. You see, you're supposed to get ready to live in church, not get ready to go out there and get depressed to come back again to build you back up again, you see. So take responsibility. We got to get to H here. H stands for heart. In order to stay on the right path, in your heart, you got to know who you really are. This girl, she loved to do gymnastics. She was always doing gymnastics, always just jumping and flipping and that kind of stuff. And her mother told her, you can do it wherever you want to in the house, but don't do it in the living room. Because in the living room, we got some of those family treasures passed down from generation to generation. The vase and the cups, and just don't do it in there, anywhere else. One day, her mother was in the back of the house, and she thought, what would it be like to do my flips in the living room? Because it had big, thick carpet, and then the sides were those hardwood floors, but she'd stay on the carpet where it was big and thick. She started doing her tricks, and all of a sudden, she lost control. Hit the family treasures. 2 of them broke on that hardwood floor, just as her leg came down on top of that hardwood floor, and that vase cut her leg, and now she's bleeding. She's thinking, how can I get out of this? What can I do? And she hears her mother coming. Mothers always come, don't they? She said that day changed her life, because when mother came in, she looked up at her. She saw the blood. She grabbed her. She started to hug on her. Says, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" She said, that day changed my life because that day I realized I was the family treasure. You see, because of the blood on Calvary, you, my friend, are the family treasure. Once you start to understand that, everything else starts to change. You start to live life not from the outside in, but from the inside out, because you know whatever you do is okay. You have a partnership. You see, you never do your best. I mean, I know you. You're sorry, no good as I am. You don't do your best. Nobody ever does their best. There's two farmers sitting on the porch. They're seeing this dog chasing a coyote. One of it's the farmer's dog. So the other farmer said, look at your dog chasing that coyote. He's pretty fast. And the old farmer says, he's not doing his best. And sure enough, about 10 minutes later, coming the other direction, this time the dog's out front, but there's 10 coyotes chasing the dog. And the old farmer says, now he's doing his best. Well, let me tell you, my friend, because of your Adam suit, even the Apostle Paul says the things I want to do, I don't do. Things I don't want to do, I end up doing. That's not a teenager, that's the Apostle Paul. Why? Because he has the same Adam suit you have, same Adam suit I have. Well, let's just get really honest since I'm your psychologist. How many of you ever promised God you'd do something, you didn't do it? Just raise your hand. Rest of you, liar, liar, pants on fire. How many ever promised God you wouldn't do something and you did it? Raise your hand. You see, we can rest because God sent his best. He lived the life you cannot live. You get credit for that life. And once you understand you're the treasure, then you start to relax, you see. Because whatever you do, it's like, I can remember my kids were young. They would come home. It'd be like Father's Day or something. And they would bring me this picture. And it was pitiful. I mean, it was like macaroni, pasted on things. And then they'd tell you what it is. This is like Abraham Washington, and this is like Lincoln. His name was John Lincoln, and he cut down this orange tree, and he had to, and it's just a mess. I mean, it's a mess. And by all standards, it could be trash. But guess what? My girls were my treasure. So I took that macaroni and I put it on the refrigerator. And because it was for me, it became a macaroni masterpiece. Some of you may feel like pasted macaroni day. It's okay. You got a perfect father. I had a good dad. He was a preacher. That's why I became a psychologist. He was a preacher. We lived at the parsonage. Whoever thought of that ought to be shot, but that's where we lived. And the parsonage was always here, and the cemetery was always here, and the church was always there. And to get home, you had to walk through the cemetery, and that dead people can scare you. You know that, don't they? I mean, dead people can scare you. And I can remember as a little kid being scared to death to walk at night through that cemetery, except when my dad was with me. And then it was a piece of cake because I was his little boy. You see, what I do is I do public speaking. That's what I do. They do surveys of fears. You know what? Many surveys, the number one fear in America is public speaking, and the number two fear is death. So that means you go to somebody's funeral, somebody's in the casket, and somebody else is doing the eulogy. Most people would rather be in the casket than doing the eulogy. Now that's crazy, isn't it? But that's how afraid people are of public speaking. Well, that's what I do. In fact, I'm pretty comfortable here. I've been here a lot, but a couple of months ago, I was in Canada speaking to business. I don't even think I knew anybody in the whole country before I got there. I have to walk out on that stage, you see. But guess what? I'm not afraid because I'm God's little boy. See, once you understand that, everything starts to change. You can walk out on the stage of marriage. You can walk out on the stage of work. You can walk out on the stage of athletics. Why? Because you're God's little boy. You're God's little girl. And although it may appear like macaroni, to him, it's a masterpiece. And that inside living will put you on the right path to be the person God created you to be. God bless.
Thank you, Dr.